The cups are filled first, then the platters arrive. Spit-roasted pig, dates dripping with honey, fresh oysters arranged in gleaming rows. You recline 3 spaces from the ruler of the known world. Your wife rests at your side. Your daughter, not yet 17, nervously smooths her garment from across the table. The chamber swells with senators, military commanders, their households. Every person of consequence in the empire occupies this room. Then Caligula rises. No toast, no proclamation. He moves deliberately around the dining arrangement, past the magistrates, past the officials, past men who control entire armies. He pauses directly behind your daughter. His palm settles on her shoulder. He speaks 5 words to you, not to her. The chamber remains frozen. Nobody stirs, because everyone present has already absorbed what you are only now discovering. Within these walls, protest is an invitation to death. So you perform exactly as every other father here has performed. You force a smile. You incline your head. You observe her departure alongside him. And when she reappears an hour afterward, voiceless, ashen, smoothing her clothing, you refill your goblet and feign blindness. Because Rome has delivered its lesson. The empire has no interest in what you witnessed, only in what you're prepared to erase from memory. If this represents history excluded from curricula, documented reality they prayed you'd never uncover, then subscribe immediately, because we continue excavating these accounts individually. No embellishment. Only unfiltered truth. What transpired within these chambers never reached conventional history texts. Yet the documentation survives. If you're present because silence should never obliterate recorded history, then remain. We're returning inside. In 37 AD, when Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus assumed authority, Rome didn't elevate an outsider. They elevated a bloodline. His father, Germanicus, had earned recognition as the most cherished commander in Roman memory. Masses sobbed at his burial. Violence erupted when rumors circulated that Tiberius had orchestrated his poisoning. His mother, Agrippina the Elder, traced her lineage directly to Augustus himself. She had marched alongside Germanicus during military expeditions, standing among legionaries in Germania while carrying children. Their offspring embodied everything Rome proclaimed itself to represent: restraint, aristocracy, martial heritage, sacred bloodlines. When Tiberius ultimately perished, the Senate required no discussion. They extended imperial authority to Gaius, called Caligula tiny boots, derived from the miniature military footwear he sported as a boy living among soldiers. He had reached 24 years. Rome exploded with jubilation. Political detainees gained freedom. Gladiatorial spectacles received funding. Grain reserves were distributed. Tax burdens decreased. Suetonius documents that approximately 160,000 beasts were slaughtered during sacrificial ceremonies within the opening 3 months alone. For 7 months, the oppressive era beneath Tiberius appeared concluded. Then Caligula fell unconscious. October 37 AD, the emperor succumbed to fever so intense that clergy were dispatched to every shrine throughout the capital. Senators offered their own lives to the divine if he endured. One Antonius Secundus pledged to compete as a gladiator should the emperor recover. Philo of Alexandria documents that the entire realm suspended breathing. Grain convoys halted, commerce ceased. Couriers traveled continuously between Rome and distant territories, conveying developments. For days he drifted between awareness and oblivion, and when consciousness returned, the historical accounts diverge. Suetonius, Cassius, Dio, Philo, Seneca. Every source acknowledges transformation, yet none provide explanation. Some attribute cerebral inflammation, others proposed poison. Contemporary scholars have theorized seizure disorders, brain infection, thyroid dysfunction, but medical explanation proves irrelevant. What matters is that the man whose eyes opened was not the man whose eyes had closed. Within weeks he proclaimed himself deity incarnate and commanded shrines erected in his likeness. He compelled senators to sprint beside his chariot for miles while draped in ceremonial robes. He commissioned a pontoon causeway spanning the Bay of Baiae exceeding 2 miles in length, solely to traverse it mounted, adorned in Alexander the Great's armor. The project devoured vessels essential for grain distribution. He resurrected the treason tribunals, the identical courts that had annihilated his own bloodline, and he commenced restructuring how the palace conducted its feasts. Initially, Rome dismissed these as peculiarities, juvenile indulgence, the hubris accompanying abrupt authority. But within months, the design crystallized. This wasn't disorder, this was system. Attendance at banquets was mandatory. Senators received notification: the emperor desires your presence. Bring your wife, bring your daughters if they have reached maturity. Declining was never presented as possibility because declining required no prohibition. Everyone recalled the fate of households that had offended Tiberius, so they appeared. The palace feasting chambers extended beyond 300 feet. Reclining couches bordered the perimeter, positioned according to status. Servants circulated bearing wine, fruit, luxuries imported from Egypt and Gaul. Caligula lounged at the apex, and he observed, not the cuisine, not the performers, he observed the women. Ancient documentation describes what became customary. He would examine a senator's wife from across the chamber, without concealment, while the husband occupied a couch 3 positions distant. Occasionally he remarked loudly, drawing comparisons to others, evaluating her features, complimenting attributes, using language calculated to degrade the husband, not honor the wife. Occasionally he signaled. An attendant approached, a hushed exchange. The woman rose, possessing no alternative, and departed with him. The chamber resumed dining. Discussion continued. Nobody recognized what had just transpired, because recognition demanded selection: protest and disappear, or maintain silence and persist. Rome selected persistence. Without exception, Suetonius documents directly. He maintained regular incestuous relations with each sister, and during grand banquets positioned them successively beneath him, while his wife reclined in the superior position. But his sisters weren't his exclusive focus. Seneca, composing decades afterward, recounts how Caligula openly appraised a consul's wife, Lalia Paulina, then escorted her from the chamber. Upon her return, the consul exhibited no reaction. Subsequently, after inspecting them as one examines slaves at auction, he claimed whichever attracted him. The expression under pretense of honoring them proves essential, because the invitation arrived disguised, a present, a tribute, an imperial distinction. Rejection was characterized not as self-preservation but as offense toward the emperor. And offending the emperor warranted singular consequence. Dio elaborates. Afterward, he would rejoin the banquet and candidly discuss what had transpired, delivering commendation or condemnation while husbands remained present. This wasn't concealment, this was spectacle. Who departed prematurely and for what purpose? But throughout their existence, they fulfilled a function. They transformed every banquet into evidence. Presence constituted complicity, and complicity constituted protection for the emperor. Because men who had participated, who had observed, who had remained mute, could never subsequently profess ignorance. They were witnesses, and witnesses to imperial atrocities became collaborators, which rendered testimony impossible. Certain men received compensation afterward, granted estates, honors, appointments. Others faced ridicule, financial penalties, banishment for insufficient appreciation of the distinction. The unpredictability was deliberate. Had punishment consistently followed defiance, men could have organized collective refusal. But when consequences proved random, when cooperation might yield advantage or might yield nothing, each man operated in isolation. Alone, voiceless, survival became solitary, and unified opposition became unachievable. Seneca captures the mathematics. Men who had previously directed legions now weighed every syllable at dinner, terrified that even concurrence might be construed as plotting. In 39 AD, following discovery of a scheme orchestrated by Gnaeus Cornelius Lentulus Gaetulicus, Caligula didn't merely execute the plotters, he pursued their households. Their wives received summons to banquets. Their daughters underwent public assessment. Then, weeks afterward, once degradation had permeated, the men faced formal treason accusations. By that point, defiance had already crumbled. The charges merely formalized what was already accomplished. But Caligula simultaneously elevated one conspirator's cousin, awarded him military authority in Germania, The communication was unmistakable. Devotion to kinship could annihilate you. Devotion to the emperor could preserve you. Select DO documents that certain senators, foreseeing the methodology, dispatched their wives to rural properties, citing sickness or familial duties. Caligula countered by demanding verification, physical examinations, sworn declarations. Should the women fail to materialize, husbands faced financial penalties or demotion for dishonoring imperial generosity. One senator identity erased. By time attempted an alternative strategy. He escorted his wife to the banquet but positioned her flanked by two elderly noblewomen, trusting that visibility might afford shelter. Caligula observed. He commended the senator openly, extolled his dedication, then summoned all three women. Upon their return, the senator received assignment inspecting grain facilities in Sardinia, an appointment constituting exile. His wife remained within Rome. The arrangement was transparent. Your household attends, or your advancement concludes. And once attendance occurred, they became palace property. But certain women anticipated rather than awaited summons. Laelia Paulina, referenced previously, offered no resistance when beckoned. Her household had purchased imperial preference before she comprehended the transaction. Seneca observes she appeared adorned in emeralds valued at 40 million sesterces, not as objection, as promotion, because within Caligula's palace, selection could be presented to outside observers as political achievement. Households commenced incorporating these imperial receptions into matrimonial arrangements. A daughter who had frequented the emperor's private quarters could be promoted as possessing imperial endorsement. The degradation was reimagined, and Rome's aristocracy proved willing to reimagine it, because the alternative required acknowledging they retained no authority whatsoever. But brutality alone fails to account for acquiescence. Caligula recognized that terror depletes, that humans adapt, that even horror becomes familiar. So he interspersed punishment with compensation. Following a senator's wife being publicly claimed, the senator might receive advancement. Following a daughter's removal from a banquet, the father might obtain a profitable grain agreement. Philo of Alexandria recounts witnessing this personally during his diplomatic mission to Rome. Men of consular standing gathered outside the emperor's quarters waiting, some consumed by dread, some animated by anticipation. When their women emerged, they did not weep, they bargained. The palace transformed into a marketplace. Proximity to the emperor demanded providing what he desired, and what he desired was subjugation visibly demonstrated. Certain households dispatched offerings preemptively, gold servants' properties in Campania. Others presented their daughters voluntarily before any request materialized. The imperial economy commenced mirroring this reality. Senators accumulated substantial debts to finance offerings that might secure preference. Creditors throughout the forum imposed elevated rates upon households recognized as lacking imperial standing. Complete fortunes were depleted to purchase a solitary reception, and when those fortunes evaporated, Caligula possessed a remedy. He auctioned possessions of men he'd executed, then extended invitations to the deceased relatives to participate in bidding. Should they decline participation, they faced accusations of insulting the emperor's magnanimity. Should they participate, they repurchased their own confiscated belongings at exorbitant valuations. The imperial coffers expanded, and Rome maintained its silence. Not every encounter occurred through compulsion. Certain households planned ahead. In early 40 AD, a senator called Valerius Catullus terminated his marriage. No justification appears in documentation. He wed again within 30 days. His replacement bride numbered 18 years, descended from ancient patrician stock, possessing no political affiliations. 3 weeks following the ceremony, Catullus escorted her to a palace feast. She received placement adjacent to the emperor. Within 60 minutes she had vanished. Upon her reappearance, Catullus obtained a profitable position administering the aqueducts. Dio chronicles this absent commentary, merely documentation, but the suggestion remains evident. Catullus had chosen a bride comprehending what the palace demanded, and she, cognizant or otherwise, had been wed into obedience. This represented no anomaly. Matrimonial agreements from this era commenced incorporating provisions regarding imperial responsibilities. juridical terminology permitting dissolution should a wife neglect obligations toward the state. Rome had initiated codifying subjugation into legislation. The Praetorian guardsmen positioned themselves outside every feast. They accompanied the women toward the emperor's quarters. They accompanied them returning. They witnessed everything. And they uttered nothing, because their function wasn't safeguarding, it was implementation. The Praetorians demonstrated no allegiance to Rome. Their allegiance belonged to compensation. Caligula doubled their wages immediately upon assuming authority. He distributed bonuses throughout celebrations. He equipped them with superior armaments across the empire, and in reciprocation they maintained singular principle. Whatever transpires within the palace remains within the palace. But even monetary devotion encounters boundaries. By 40 AD, fractures materialized. Cassius Chaerea, a distinguished Praetorian tribune who had campaigned beneath Germanicus, became subject to imperial derision. Caligula challenged his masculinity openly, assigned him humiliating watchwords to recite during patrol changes. Priapus, Venus, pleasure compelled him to press lips against his hand in theatrical deference during rituals. Ancient documentation portrays Chaerea as seasoned combatisted, esteemed throughout the ranks and conspicuously degraded. He voiced no protest, but his expressions ceased conveying contentment. Fellow Praetorians perceived the shift. Cornelius Sabinus, an additional tribune, had observed senators degraded for months. He had accompanied women departing the emperor's quarters in tears. He had maintained position while their husbands feigned oblivion, and he had accepted his wages. But the watchwords differed, because the watchwords targeted them directly. The Praetorians received instruction. You possess no distinction from the senators. You persist because I permit it. By late 40 AD, numerous conspiracies circulated. Senators exchanged whispers within private estates. Freedmen conveyed communications. But nothing advanced, because Caligula had constructed apparatus wherein solitary defiance constituted self-destruction, and coordinated action demanded confidence, and confidence demanded identifying who else would participate. Within a palace where informants earned rewards and silence ensured continuation, nobody possessed certainty. Chaerea's plot prevailed not through ingenuity, it prevailed through minimalism. 3 individuals, perhaps 4. No elaborate proclamations, no senatorial participation, merely exhaustion. They didn't strategize for months. They didn't enlist supporters. They awaited occasion. January 24, 41 AD, the Palatine Festival. Thousands filled the venue. Caligula departed the amphitheater via a subterranean passageway connecting to the palace. The Germanic escort, his personal contingent of imposing German warriors, accompanied him partially, then halted because Chaerea commanded them to. He held superior rank. They complied. Chaerea and Cornelius Sabinus intercepted Caligula within the confined corridor. The accounts depict pandemonium. The initial strike originated from behind. Chaerea's sword penetrated between shoulder and throat. Caligula collapsed. Then the others converged. 30 puncture wounds, several to the torso, several to the groin, several to the face. They continued until recognition became impossible. The Germanic escorts detected the disturbance. They charged back. But by that moment, Caligula had ceased breathing. Amid the disorder that ensued, historical sources dispute the identity, accessed Caligula's private quarters. His wife Caesonia was slain. His infant daughter Julia Drusilla was slain. Her skull shattered against stonework, not as retribution, as obliteration. Because while Caligula's lineage persisted, someone might pursue vengeance, and nobody desired vengeance. They desired amnesia. When word reached the Senate, they expressed no grief. They deliberated whether to resurrect the Republic. For hours, discourse consumed the chamber. Certain senators advocated elections. Others suggested a rotating council of magistrates sharing authority. It resembled, momentarily, genuine possibility. But the Senate commanded no military. The Praetorian Guard commanded one. And the Praetorians harbored no interest in deliberation. They discovered Claudius Caligula's uncle concealed behind drapery within the palace. The man Rome had dismissed as simpleton for years, speech impaired, mobility compromised, overlooked during familial gatherings. The Praetorians proclaimed him emperor, not from affection, because he guaranteed payment. 15,000 sesterces per guardsman, the most substantial military bonus in Roman Chronicle. Subsequently, the Senate confirmed Claudius that identical day. The Republic received no further mention. Sharia anticipated execution. He had assassinated an emperor. He had betrayed his Praetorian oath. But Claudius wavered. Sharia maintained popularity throughout the ranks. Executing him threatened insurrection. For weeks, Sharia remained confined. Neither formally accused nor liberated, then murmurs commenced. Should Sharia escape punishment? What precedent emerged? That emperor assassination warranted tolerance. Claudius ultimately commanded execution. Sharia faced decapitation. Cornelius Sabinus followed. The remaining conspirators, those whose identities endured, received exile or quiet elimination from documentation. Rome proceeded forward. The archives remained silent regarding the women's fates. Lalia Paulina endured. She remarried. Years subsequently, Claudius's spouse Agrippina leveled accusations of sorcery. She received banishment, then compulsory suicide. Other women simply evaporated from records. Daughters who frequented the banquets ceased materializing in household lineages. Wives referenced in earlier engravings vanished from subsequent ones. Certain historians propose self-destruction. Others propose discreet banishment. Some theorize they were merely expunged, erased from recollection, as Rome erased Caligula's monuments, because Rome desired no accounting. It desired oblivion. Caligula's identity was stripped from monuments. His proclamations were nullified. Claudius pronounced him damnatio memoria, sentenced to non-existence, not to commemorate the victims, to eliminate the inquiry of collaboration. If Caligula represented insanity, then Rome hadn't failed. It had merely suffered temporary derangement, and derangement, unlike cowardice, escapes condemnation. The women who persisted received offerings, property, currency, recompense for quietude, and they accepted because what alternative existed? Their accounts would have demanded Rome acknowledge what it devoted centuries to dismissing as inconsequential. So they collected the gold, wed again, and dissolved into history. Caligula governed for 3 years and 10 months. Throughout that duration, he didn't originate imperial violation. Tiberius had perpetrated horrors on Capri for a decade preceding him. Suetonius chronicles how Tiberius coerced young boys and girls into carnal acts, occasionally hurling them from precipices afterward, how he detained aristocrats imprisoned within his estate, tormenting them while maintaining pretense they were distinguished visitors. Augustus himself had banished his own daughter Julia for infidelity, though many suspected political retribution masquerading as ethical judgment. Following Caligula, the pattern persisted. Claudius, whom Rome anticipated would reinstate stability, later faced accusations of executing his wife Messalina following her public disgrace of him. Nero struck his pregnant wife Poppaea fatally, subsequently wedding a youth named Sporus after ordering his castration. He compelled Sporus to appear costumed as Poppaea and accompany him publicly as spouse. He additionally conducted feasts where senators' wives suffered assault while their husbands observed, designating it amusement. Commodus competed as gladiator and marketed Senate positions to superior bidders. Elagabalus coerced Vestal virgins, priestesses, pledged to celibacy into matrimony, then dissolved those unions weeks afterward. He processed through Rome wearing feminine garments while violating senators' wives during official ceremonies. Caracalla slaughtered his own brother Geta within their mother's embrace, subsequently commanding the elimination of 20,000 Geta supporters, encompassing their households. The catalogue extends across centuries. So the inquiry isn't why Caligula perpetrated his actions. The inquiry is why Rome behaved as though it was transient. Following Caligula's assassination, the Senate deliberated republican restoration for 6 hours. Then they ratified Claudius and departed, because the Senate had forfeited its authority decades prior, not abruptly, but incrementally. Under Augustus, the Senate still designated provincial governors and administered finances. Under Tiberius, the Senate still contested legislation. Under Caligula, the Senate frequented banquets and applauded upon instruction. The transformation wasn't theatrical, it was administrative. Augustus had bestowed upon the praetorians permanent standing and compensation, funded through imperial treasury, not senatorial allocation. Tiberius had transferred treason proceedings from public tribunals to confidential imperial sessions. Caligula merely rendered explicit what had remained implicit. The Senate administered because the emperor sanctioned it, and that sanction could be withdrawn. When Claudius assumed authority, he didn't reinstate senatorial power. He expressed gratitude for their ratification as though their ballot possessed consequence. Then he governed precisely as Caligula had, absent the performative brutality. The framework endured. Solely the presentation shifted, and Rome, depleted, designated it reform. Suetonius, composing 70 years following Caligula's demise, incorporated particulars regarding the banquets, but he contextualized them as demonstrations of lunacy, evidence that Caligula was singularly disturbed, not that the apparatus permitted it. Cassius Dio, composing 150 years subsequently, chronicled the wives who received summons, but he composed in Greek, addressing audiences distant from Rome. His narratives constituted histories, not indictments. Seneca, who survived Caligula's reign, referenced Laelia Paulina's emeralds but omitted their purpose. The documentation exists, but it exists as shards, as incidents woven into broader accounts of imperial extravagance, never as examinations into why hundreds of men possessing wealth, influence, and military authority awaited someone else to intervene, never as testimony from the women who endured, because posing those questions would have compelled Rome to address what it devoted centuries to rejecting: that the apparatus had been engineered to render opposition impossible, and that silence wasn't timidity, it was construction. We recognize Laelia Paulina's name because she subsequently wed an emperor. We recognize Caesonia's name because she perished alongside Caligula. We recognize Julia Livilla among Caligula's sisters because she later received banishment for purported infidelity. But the remainder, the daughters escorted to banquets at 16, the wives summoned while their husbands observed, the women who appeared month following month, year following year, comprehending what appearance signified. Their names persist solely as voids, engravings that referenced spouse of without recording her identity, family trees that omit entire generations, matrimonial agreements that terminate without explanation. Certain historians have endeavored to reconstruct these existences through financial documentation: a dowry remitted, then refunded, a property conveyance lacking justification, a testament that disinherits a daughter for circumstances recognized by the household. But reconstruction doesn't constitute testimony, an absent testimony. What persists is framework: the palace, the banquets, the apparatus, and the men who engineered it. Caligula's assassination didn't rescue Rome. It instructed Rome that spectacle could be tolerated, provided it ultimately concluded; that degradation could be weathered, provided standing persisted; that women could be eliminated, provided bloodlines continued. The palace didn't seal following Caligula. It persisted as the nucleus of authority. The banquets proceeded under Claudius, under Nero, under the emperors who succeeded. What transformed wasn't the apparatus. What transformed was that Rome learned to designate it governance rather than insanity. And the women who persisted were never questioned regarding what they absorbed, because their testimony would have demanded Rome confess what it devoted centuries to pretending held no significance: that the empire's authority depended not upon legislation, or integrity, or martial capability, but upon whom it conditioned to remain voiceless, and through what methods. The documentation exists. The sources are preserved, the names persist, or they don't. Both absences communicate identical narrative. If history of this nature holds importance, remain with us. The obscure chronicles refuses to let silence prevail.